Our today's topic is about the classification of joint, and we use different criteria to classify the joints. The most important are two criteria that we use, and the first one is according to their structure, and the second one is according to their movement. The third criteria that we use is according to their range of mobility that we will discuss in the end. So starting with the two main criteria. First of all, by definition, we know that a joint is a connection between two bones, and on the basis of their structure and movement, we subdivide them into three subgroups. If we talk about the classification by their structure, then we classify them into three subgroups. The first group consists of fibrous joints, and the bones in this group will be connected by a tough fibrous tissue. The next one is cartilaginous group, and in this group the bones will be connected by hyaline cartilage. The last one is synovial group, and in this group the bones will be enclosed within the fluid filled joint capsule. So this is the first criteria that we use to classify our joints, and that is according to their structure, and we have subdivided them or subclassified them into three groups that are fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. Now we will talk about the next criteria, that is according to the degree of movement, and we subdivide the joints on the basis of their movement into three classes, that are synarthrosis, amphiarthrosis, and diarthrosis. So synarthrosis are those joints that are immovable, amphiarthrosis are those joints that show slight movements, and diarthrosis are those joints that are freely movable. Most of the fibrous joints, because they are connected by tough fibrous tissue, are synarthrosis, while the cartilaginous does show little movement, and the synovial are those joints that are freely movable joint in your body, and most of the joints are synovial joints that allow the movement and help you in locomotion. So the first type of joint that we are going to talk about is fibrous joint, and we subclassify it into three types, that are sutures, gumphoses, and syndesmosis. So a fibrous joint is where the bones are bound by a tough fibrous tissue. These are typically joints that require strength, and we can classify the fibrous joints into three types. Number one is suture, and remember that the sutures are immovable joints, so we can call them synarthrosis as well, and these are commonly found between the cranial bones, that are the bones of your skull. There is a little movement until about 20 years of age, and after that they become fixed and immobile, and these are basically most important during the birth, and allowing the deformation of the skull as it passes through the birth canal. So they allow easy passage of the baby through the birth canal. And before the age of 20, especially in infants, we call them fontanelle, and you can feel the fontanelle in the interior and posterior parts of the skull of a baby. And if you feel these fontanelle, they are basically soft. Gumphoses is the next type, and gumphoses are also immovable joints, and gumphoses basically is a joint between the root of your tooth and the alveolar ridges that are present in the mandible and maxilla, and these are basically stay in place through the periodontal ligament. So gumphoses are also immovable joints, and they are found where the teeth articulate with their sockets in the maxilla, and we call these sockets alveolar ridges. The tooth is bound into its socket by the strong periodontal ligament. The last type is syndesmosis, and the syndesmosis shows a little movement, so we can call them amphiarthrosis as well. They are comprised of bones held together by an interosseous membrane. The middle radioulnar joint and middle tibiofibular joint are example of syndesmosis joint. So basically, uh, in the forearm and in the leg, between the tibial fibula and between the radius and ulna, there is an interosseous membrane, and the interosseous membrane basically holds these two bones together, and this is a type of syndesmosis. So these are the three subtypes of fibrous joint. Starting from the left, this is an example of suture that is between the two parietal bones, and we call it the sagittal suture. We will discuss these sutures in detail when we will study skull bone. The next type is gymphosis, and you can see the joint between the root of the tooth and the alveolar ridge. So this is a type of gymphosis, and this is also a fibrous joint, and this is immovable. The last one is the syndesmosis, and you can see that this is an example of radioulnar, and between the radius and ulna you can see the interosseous membrane that is holding these two bones together. The second group is cartilaginous group, and in a cartilaginous joint the bones are united by the fibrocartilage or hyaline cartilage. There are two main types of the cartilaginous joint. The first one is synchondrosis, which are the primary cartilaginous joints, and the next one is symphysis, which is the secondary cartilaginous joint. So if we talk about the synchondrosis, then in this type of joint the bones will be connected by the hyaline cartilage, and these are the joints that are immovable, so we can call them synarthrosis as well. An example of a synchondrosis is a joint between the diaphysis and epiphysis of a growing long bone, which is the growth plate, and we have already talked about it in our early lecture. The next type is symphysis, and symphysis joints are where the bones are united by a layer of fibrocartilage, and they show slight movement, so we can call them amphiarthrosis. And examples include the pubic symphysis and joints between the vertebral bodies. Once again, cartilaginous joints are those joints that are connected by the hyaline cartilage, and on the basis of their structure we further classify them into synchondrosis and symphysis. So if we talk about the synchondrosis, we also call them primary cartilaginous, and the bones will be connected by the hyaline cartilage, and these are immovable joints, so we can call them synarthrosis as well. Examples include the joint between the diaphysis and epiphysis of a growing long bone, which is called the growth plate. And the next type is symphysis, where the bones are united by a layer of fibrocartilage. These are slightly movable joints, so we can call them amphiarthrosis as well. And the examples include the pubic symphysis and the joints between the vertebral bodies. Another important point about the symphysis is that these joints commonly or usually lie along the midline of your body. So these are the two types of cartilaginous joint. The A image is showing the synchondrosis, which is between the epiphysis and diaphysis, and the other one, which is the B image, is showing the symphysis, which is an example of pubic symphysis. The last type of joint on the basis of their structure is synovial, and these are the joints that are highly movable joints. A synovial joint is defined by the presence of a fluid-filled joint cavity contained within a fibrous capsule. They are freely movable, so we can call them diarthrosis as well, and are the most common type of joint found in the body. Synovial joints can be subclassified into several different types depending on the shape of their articular surfaces and the movements they permit. So we classify them into hinge type of joint on the basis of their articular surfaces, saddle shaped joint, plane or gliding joint, and pivot joint, condylite, and ball and socket. So before discussing these types in detail, let's look at the images. The first image is showing the hinge type of joint. The second image is a pivot joint. The third one is condylite, which is also called ellipsoid joint. Then comes the saddle shaped joint, which is resembling the saddle of a horse. The next one is ball and socket joint, and the last one is gliding joint, gliding or plane joint. So now we will discuss them in detail, and once again we have classified them on the basis of their shape of their articular surfaces. So the first type is hinge type, and it permits movement in one plane. So we call them uniaxial joints as well. We will discuss range of their mobility after, but first you should know that on the basis of their articular surfaces, the hinge shaped is elbow joint and ankle joint, and also the knee joint. Saddle shaped, it resembles a saddle on a horseback, and it is characterized by opposing articular surfaces with a reciprocal concave and convex shape. You can see in this image that the articular surface of one bone is concave and the other is convex. So this is forming a saddle shaped joint and concave convex shape complex. And the example include carpometacarpal joint, and this is basically found in your thumb, and it allows different movements. The next one is plane, and this basically allows the gliding movement, and the surfaces will be plane. You can see here the surfaces are plane, and these surfaces, because these are plane, will allow only the gliding movements. Next type is pivot, and pivot is formed by a central bony pivot which is surrounded by a bony ligamentous ring. So there is a ring and a pivot. The center image is showing a pivot type of joint, and you can see a ring and a pivot. The example includes atlantoaxial joint, and atlantoaxial joint is between the first two vertebrae of your body, which are C1 cervical 1 vertebrae and C2 cervical 2 vertebrae. So the atlantoaxial joint is between these two vertebrae. The next is condylite or ellipsoid, and it contains a convex surface which articulates with a concave elliptical cavity. That's why we call them ellipsoid as well. And these are also known as ellipsoid joints. For example, wrist joint, metacarpophalangeal joint, and metacarpo. Sorry, I have repeated them twice. These are the condylite joints. And there is a concave surface and a convex surface. The last one is ball and socket, where the ball shaped surface of one rounded bone fits into the cup like depression of another bone, and it permits free movement in numerous axes. Okay, so once again we talked about the synovial joints, which according to their movement are also called diarthrosis. And we further classify the synovial joints according to their shape into different uh, types. The first type that we studied is hinge type, and the hinge type is commonly found in elbow joint and knee joint, and this allows limited movement, uh, or we also call it a uniaxial joint because it allows a movement in a single plane, along a single plane. In our earlier lectures, we have discussed about the various planes of the body in which the movements occur. There were three main axes, and there were frontal, sagittal, and vertical axis. So the hinge type will only allows flexion and extension, and this is the movement along the frontal axis. And the examples include knee joint and elbow joint. The next is pivot joint, and the example includes atlantoaxial joint, and this is also a uniaxial joint, and it allows the rotation. For example, the nodding of your head when you want to say yes to someone, and also the movement around the axis of your neck when you want to say no. So the atlantoaxial joint is responsible for a single plane movement. The next is chondrite or ellipsoid, and this is a biaxial joint which allows movement in two planes, and the example include wrist joint. This is the saddle shape joint on the left side, and the saddle shape is very important joint for the opposition of your thumb, and this is a biaxial joint which shows abduction, adduction, flexion, and extension. The next is ball and socket joint, and this is a joint which is a polyaxial or multi-axial joint, so it shows multiple movements. The last one is gliding or plane joint, and there is no classification according to the range of mobility. We do not classify it into poly, uni, or biaxial joint. And the example include acromioclavicular joint, where it shows gliding movement. This is the example of acromioclavicular joint, which is an example of plane or gliding joint. You can see the joint between the plane surface of clavicle and the acromion process of the scapula. There are also some characteristics of synovial joints that we have already discussed, but we will discuss them once again. So the first characteristic is articular or hyaline cartilage. We have discussed that those parts of the joints that will take part in the formation of the joint will be covered by the hyaline cartilage. So the parts of the bone which are in contact are always covered with the hyaline cartilage. This provides a smooth articular surface, reduces friction, and is strong enough to absorb compression forces and bear the weight of the body. The cartilage lining, which is up to 7 mm thick in young people, becomes thinner and less compressible with age. This leads to increasing stress on other structures in the joint. Cartilage has no blood supply. This is very important MCQ, and receives its nourishment from synovial fluid. When the cartilage lining becomes thinner and the chances of friction increase, there is the chances of developing various diseases related to the joints. For example, arthritis. The next characteristic is capsule or capsular ligament, and the joint is surrounded and enclosed by a sleeve of fibrous tissue which holds the bones together, and it is sufficiently loose to allow freedom of movement but strong enough to protect it from injury. And we have seen the extracapsular and intracapsular ligaments. Next is synovial membrane. This epithelial layer lines the capsule and covers all known weight bearing surfaces inside the joint, and it secretes the synovial fluid. We have discussed it in detail, and we have also discussed the cross section and all its structure in detail. The next is synovial fluid, and we know that it has various functions, and this is a thick sticky fluid of egg white consistency which fills the synovial cavity. It nourishes the structures within the joint cavity, for example the connective tissue, cartilage. Contains phagocytes which remove microbes and cellular debris, acts as a lubricant and maintains the joint stability, prevents the ends of the bones from being separated, as does a little water between two glass surfaces. Little sacs of synovial fluid or bursae are present in some joints, for example the knee, and they act as cushions to prevent friction between the ligament or tendon or skin where a bone in a joint is near the surface. Other intracapsular structures include fat pads and menisci in the knee joint. There are lateral and medial menisci in knee joint. Extracapsular structures, ligaments that blend with the capsule provide additional stability at most joints. Muscles or their tendons also provide stability. Stretch across the joints, they move. When the muscle contracts, it shortens, pulling one bone towards other. We have discussed it that the muscle usually contract from their insertion towards the region, so pulling one bone towards the other, and we know that when muscle will contract, they will shorten. Nerve and blood supply. Nerves and blood vessels crossing a joint usually supply the capsule and the muscles that move it. So the blood supply or the nerves that will supply the joint will supply the capsule and muscles of the joints also. This is a cross section, sagittal cross section of a synovial joint, and you can see the various structures. You can appreciate the articular capsule, and we know that an articular capsule has two layers, the outer fibrous layer and the inner synovial layer, which secretes synovial fluid. There will be fat pads, which is highlighted with yellow, and there are menisci as well, for example in the knee joint. There will be extracapsular ligaments, intracapsular ligaments, and the extracapsular muscles as well. So these are all the structures associated with the synovial joints. So these are the movements that synovial joints permit. If we talk about the flexion, then this is the bending, usually forward but occasionally backward, for example knee joint. So this is the flexion, and flexion is usually forward, but at the knee joint it is backward. This is an exception. Extension is straightening or bending backwards, but in knee joint that would be opposite. The next is abduction, which is movement away from the midline of the body, and so here is the abduction and adduction. If you move your arm towards the body, then this is the adduction, and if you move your arm away from the body, then that would be abduction. Circumduction is basically the combination of all movements. and for example, movement of a limb or digit so that it describes the shape of a cone. This is the circumduction. Next is rotation, movement around the long axis of your body, for example, the internal rotation and external rotation. I think there is no example of rotation, but the rotation includes internal and external rotation of a joint. Then comes pronation and supination, and we know that these are related to the palm. If you turn your palm of the hand down, then this is called the pronation, and if you turn the palm of your hand up, then this is called the supination. Inversion is turning the sole of your foot inwards, and eversion is turning the sole of the foot outwards. So this is the eversion, which is turning the sole of your foot outwards, and this is the inversion, which is turning your sole inwards. This is pronation, this one, and this is supination, in which the palm of your hand is facing upwards, and this is pronation, in which the palm of your palm of your hand is facing downwards. This is the extension and flexion at the neck, and bending your head backwards is extension, and bending your head forward is called the flexion at neck. This is flexion and extension at knee joint, and flexion and extension is opposite to the other flexion and extension at other joints, and flexion at knee joint will be backwards, and extension will be forward. This is flexion and extension at shoulder joint. This is adduction and abduction. If you move your arm towards the body, then that would be adduction. You are adding towards your body, and if it moves away from the body, then we call it abduction. This is the circumduction, and this is basically the combination of different movements. Okay, this is the rotation around the neck, rotation of your head, and this is also rotation at your hip joint. Sorry, this one is at your knee joint. And this is the opposition of your thumb that occurs at the saddle joint, which is your thumb joint. So that's all for today. I hope आपको समझ आ गई होगी. If you have any question regarding this lecture, then you can ask. Thank you so much.